Our water dropper systems created pushes and pulls on detectors, leading to questions about the nature of static electricity, forces, and fields. These questions drive the learning in Unit C2, Lesson 4. I'm Jamie Yos, an OpenSciEd teacher, facilitator, and item writer, and I'm here to provide you with an overview of how this lesson fits into the overall sequence of the unit. I'll highlight the lesson's key instructional moments and share class-tested strategies to help guide your students as they develop their understanding of what causes lightning and why some locations are safer than others during a lightning storm. Let's look at where we left off in Lesson 3, where we saw that some objects were attracted or repelled from the water dropper system, and that the distance the test objects were from the water dropper system itself affected how strongly the test objects experienced the interaction. In addition, we saw that when the test objects were brought near the water dropper systems, that affected how strongly they interacted. We saw that the strong interactions were correlated with the moment right before the spark formed in the water dropper system. We saw a connection between the behavior of our experiences with static electricity. And so now we're wondering what's happening when we produce static electricity. Let's look at the foundations of this lesson. This is a 2-day hands-on investigation in which we will be designing a research question and developing procedures to test the formation of static electricity, allowing us to make modifications to our initial models from the water dropper system. Plan on taking 45 minutes to set up Lesson 4. You'll need time to make some copies of the setup materials and the materials themselves for the static investigations. The static investigation will include some new materials, including PTFE, which is Teflon sheets, acrylic sheets, which is plexiglass, plastic combs, floss, aluminum foil, and others that are listed in the teacher's guide. If you did not complete Unit 1, Polar Ice, you need to generate an investigation anchor chart, which helps students to consider control, independent, and responding variables. This lesson has 3 distinct sense-making loops that span across these 2 days. In the first loop, we navigate from testing objects with the water dropper system and consider related phenomena that produces static electricity. We provide peer feedback on our initial models of the water dropper system and consider how testing related phenomena can help us understand if our models are reliable, and how testing related phenomena could help us add new ideas about forces to our models. We consider what materials are available to investigate static electricity, which leads us to developing investigation questions. Using our investigation anchor chart developed in C1, the Polar Ice unit, we group our investigation questions and consider what data needs to be collected. We conduct our investigations and share our results, allowing the class to consider patterns in the investigation results. This leads us to wonder, what sort of empirical evidence do we need to have that allows us to better understand the behavior of static electricity we modeled with our water dropper system? In the second loop, we navigate by emphasizing how the empirical evidence we collected in day 1's investigation help us to more clearly define static behavior seen in our models. This allows us to revise our water dropper system models using empirical evidence to start to formalize forces within their models. Students will compare models for similarities and differences, leading to a building understanding discussion and to establish agreement on a way to represent force interaction in the system that can account for the evidence we have. The forces we witness in the water dropper systems seem similar to forces we've explored before, like magnetism and gravity, but we're not sure about a static force. This leads us to wonder, what sort of force explains static electricity? In the final loop, we use a coherent reading protocol to help us identify electrostatic forces as they relate to the static electricity phenomena. We use the reading and discussion to build our own matter energy forces poster, adding connections between forces and matter. We update our personal glossaries by coming to agreement on the meaning of the terms empirical evidence, charge, electrostatic force, and field. This leads us to wonder, how does matter become charged And does charge have anything to do with lightning? We recognize that matter can exert attractive or repulsive forces on other matter, and that the distance between the matter affects the magnitude of the force. These forces seem to arise as a result of contact or friction between matter, but not all matter produces these forces. The forces we see at small scale seem to be related to the phenomena in the water dropper system and maybe lightning, and that matter that exert forces on one another do so through a field. There are four specific instructional moments in this lesson that I pay close attention to. In part 4, take the time to link the development of students' investigation questions and designs to the anchor investigation chart developed in C1 on polar ice. If you haven't conducted C1, use the OpenSciEd teacher guide for C1 to help you develop this chart with your students. The goal of the students' test is to identify the reliability of their models in explaining static phenomena. By clearly defining a question, the selection of which objects to use in the design of their investigation procedure will be much easier. Also, take the time to develop a common class data table using the ideas of the investigation anchor chart to be able to collect and keep track of data and allow students to modify their test procedures to better meet the needs of their team's investigation. If students are having a difficult time determining what to manipulate in their investigation, you may want to provide them with a list of suggestions like type of material, combination of materials used, distance between objects, or the amount of time rubbing objects together before testing. In part 5, students are conducting the investigation. There are a lot of materials students can select from to conduct their investigation. If you run into a supply material issue, encourage students to share or swap materials so that no groups are left waiting with nothing to do. Reinforce the importance of this investigation to build reliability in our initial models. Empirical data, information gathered through experimentation, is a way that scientists can support or refute claims and models. In part 6, students will select a spokesperson to share out their results. Be sure to chart each team's results to allow the class to call out patterns that arise in the data. Another key moment occurs in Sense-Making Loop 2, Part 10, where the class conducts a building understandings discussion in a scientist circle. The purpose of this discussion is to establish an agreement on a way to represent force interactions in the system that can account for the empirical evidence we've collected. Listen for an understanding that forces cause objects to attract or repel, changing the distance between objects changes how strong the force is, and friction brings about a force somehow. The last key moment I'll mention in the sense-making loop is in loop 3, part 11. Read about and discuss distance forces. The reading uses a coherent reading protocol in which sections of the reading are chunked, followed by a prompt to have students write the main idea in their own words. I found this protocol to be very useful in helping students to slow their reading and search for the big ideas. And this particular reading has several big ideas linking matter, electrostatic forces, and fields together. It also primes students for the discussion that follows the reading. After the discussion of the reading, be sure to take time to link the idea of charges and fields to our water dropper system models. I see a lot of light bulbs start to go off when students start to make connections with new concept that they've been struggling with and been trying to explain in their models. Lastly, don't forget to tie in the MEF poster, the matter energy forces poster. Add in the components that electrostatic fields come from matter that has a charge and that forces come from fields. Where do we go from here? Well, we wrap up by updating our personal glossaries with our new vocabulary: empirical evidence, charge, electrostatic force, and electric field, and navigating out. We are starting to see a connection between matter and forces through this new concept of fields. We recognize that in order to experience an electrostatic force between matter, we need friction forces that lead to something we call charge. So now we are wondering, how does matter become charged? We'll take a few moments to consider some tips and tricks I've discovered from using this lesson in my classes. First one, this may be one of the first opportunities for students to conduct experimental design in your class. I highly recommend you take the time with your classes to make sure students have developed a clear experimental question and reproducible procedures that are clear about what data they're collecting. It is not uncommon for students to develop a procedure, then once they start to collect data, recognize that they need to change their procedure. I allow for this, but modify and recollect their data set with an explanation for why they changed what they did. I like to keep teams to 2 or 3 for this so that teams can be responsive to these types of changes that come up. Recognize, however, that this can be a materials intensive lab and that you may need to put limitation on materials they select based on availability. Regarding the materials for this investigation, as with the previous 2 lessons, humidity will play a role in the success or challenges for students in this investigation. The materials I find most successful, even on the most humid days, are the PTFE sheets, the Teflon sheets, acrylic sheets, which is the plexiglass, scrap paper from a hole punch, and tinsel being used as a detector. Balloons are also great, but I recommend putting boundaries on balloon use in my classroom to prevent the investigation becoming a beach volleyball experience. As mentioned, several key words will come up in this lesson worthy of adding to their personal glossaries. Co-constructed words are words we come to as a class through agreement on for their definitions. The definition of empirical evidence is addressed in the C1 polar ice, but if you've not completed C1, be sure to define it here. Keep track of all the resources on the left as they will be used in future lessons. I like to hang on types of distance forces posters for the next few lessons to help students make the connection between different forces that act at a distance. Be careful though, many students will want to call the force that results from friction between objects magnetism. The type of distance forces poster can be used to reframe their thinking to electrostatics. And that brings us to lesson 5, where we will go deeper with the idea of friction leading to charged objects. Thank you again for your time in exploring lesson 4, and I hope you enjoy your experiences with this lesson and your students.